Head, Mr. Ignatieff.
Thank you, Veselka. Canada lost its seat on the Security Council of the United Nations. First time it ever happened. Canada made a fiasco of the G8, G20 summit. So, Veselka, you're right. We have lost prestige on the international stage. I think of all the things that we need to do on the international stage, Canada needs to stand for great values abroad, the same values it stands for at home, particularly democracy, defending and promoting democracy around the world, but you can't do that abroad unless you believe in it and promote it at home. And Mr. Harper has betrayed our democracy at home, and I don't think he can stand up for democracy and freedom abroad.
Mr. Layton. Michael Ignatieff.
On May the 2nd, choose a government that respects democracy. Choose a government that respects the citizens' rights. Choose a government that focuses on your priorities. Mr. Harper doesn't have your priorities in mind. His priorities are jets, jails, and corporate tax giveaways. Our priorities are to help Canadian families get an education for their kids at college and university with our learning passport, early learning and childcare for families that need it, home reno so that they can make their families more energy efficient, and restore Canada's proud place in the world. The choice will be between a Harper government or a Liberal government on May the 2nd. I hope you'll vote Liberal, but most of all, I thank you for taking part in this debate tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ignatieff.
How can, and I do remember that Mr. Harper in 2004 was working like that. We met in a hotel room in Montreal, remember, Jack? The Delta, and we changed all the rules of Parliament. We wrote a letter to Adrian Clarkson. You wrote it, we signed it, saying that if Paul Martin was to lose confidence in the House, we said to the then Governor General Adrian Clarkson, don't launch an election, consult us, we have other options. Obviously the other options were what? Jack Layton with around 20 members as Prime Minister? Certainly not. Gilles Duceppe as Prime Minister of Canada? Certainly not, I'm sure of that. The only option was you. You finished second, and you wanted to be Prime Minister. Exactly what you've asked, exactly what you wrote, it's exactly what we signed, and you went to see and meet with Adrian Clarkson to discuss that. And now you say, impossible to do so. I mean, well, you said something, you preached something, you wrote something, and you did something else.
Can I correct the facts?
Sam, we're having an election this time because Mr. Harper didn't tell Parliament the truth about any of his economic promises. $30 billion on jets, $13 billion on prisons, $6 billion on unaffordable tax cuts. Parliament, the Speaker of the House of Commons held the government in contempt. This is a Prime Minister who shut down Parliament twice. We need to rebuild our democracy after Mr. Harper. Mr. Harper cannot be trusted with the institutions of our country. It's as simple as that. This is a man who simply will shut down anything he can't control. He shut down Parliament twice. If you're asking me how we rebuild democracy, it means working with other parties, listening to other people's ideas, letting democracy flourish, making sure we listen to Canadians and treat them with respect, instead of replacing this system of continuous, constant control.
You two are allowed to have at it now.
Yeah.
The fact remains, Mr. Harper, you're the first Prime Minister in the history of Canada to lose the seat that we were eligible to occupy on the Security Council of the United Nations. You spent, on the G20 summit, we had an opportunity to lead. You spent $1 billion in 72 hours, and there isn't a person in Canada who can remember a substantive outcome from that summit. And talking about Kairos, talking about aid agencies who work in Africa, you've muzzled them, you've shut them down. Anything you can't control, you want to shut down. That's no way to build international prestige overseas. These church organizations had worked in Africa for 30 years with support from the Canadian government, and for ideological reasons you shut them down. When Rights and Democracy, an independent organization trying to represent human rights around the world, gave you a little trouble, you basically destroyed the organization. So you can't lead in this country if you show so little respect for democracy. You've got to let different voices flourish in foreign affairs.
Mr. Harper, then Mr. Layton.